What would you do if you saw a mother and her three infants collapsed from hunger right in the middle of a sunny park? For Ethan Cole, a billionaire with no one to come home to, the answer was simple: he didn't walk away. And that decision changed everything. Ethan Cole jogged through Maple Glen Park that spring morning, cool air brushing against his skin as the sun painted the grass in vibrant green. At 43, he had built a tech empire: smart home systems, automation platforms, and AI patents lined his portfolio. Yet, his penthouse in downtown Newbridge felt quieter with each passing year. Too many shallow relationships, too many walls built after a betrayal that still echoed. Running gave him peace. It was routine, rhythmic, a steady beat that kept regret at bay. The park buzzed with life kids shrieking over kites, couples with coffee cups, families with picnic blankets. But just as Ethan passed the grove near the Eastern Trail, something broke the scene. A stroller, tilted, its canopy skewed, and a woman barely more than a girl slumped on a bench beside it. Her blonde hair tangled, her head drooped unnaturally. Ethan's feet slowed, his gut twisted. She looked no older than 25. Her clothes were worn thin, a diaper bag at her feet spilling its contents: wipes, bottles, a single baby shoe. Inside the stroller, bislubdi, three infants triplets. Tiny, silent, still, no older than 6 months. Their skin was pale, their mouths dry. No motion but the faintest rise and fall of breath. Ethan's heart pounded. "Hey," he called, rushing forward. No response. He crouched, checking her wrist. Pulse faint. Clammy skin. The babies were worse, barely stirring, their bodies limp, lips cracked. One bottle of formula dangled loosely, crusted at the rim, used too many times. Dehydration. Starvation. Pure exhaustion. He wasn't a doctor, but years on charitable boards told him this was critical. "Ma'am," he said, gently shaking her shoulder. Her eyelids fluttered. Dazed green eyes tried to focus, then slid shut again. One of the babies whimpered. The sound fragile, broken hit Ethan like a gut punch. There was no time to wait for 911. His estate 10 minutes away had a live-in nurse, a full kitchen, stocked supplies. He'd spent millions making it comfortable. Now, for once, it could serve a purpose. He acted on instinct. Carefully, he lifted the woman into his arms. She was frighteningly light. Her head rested against his chest, unconscious. With one hand, he secured the stroller, carefully adjusting the tiny hats that had slipped off in the shuffle. He half jogged, half dragged the stroller toward his Range Rover, parked near the east gate. Curious stares met him, but he didn't stop. Once inside, he laid the woman across the passenger seat, buckled the babies in the back, and called his estate manager mid-drive. "Miranda, I need Dr. Patel ready. Emergency. A woman and 3 infants. Looks like starvation. Get formula, blankets, everything. Yes, sir." Right away. As the city blurred past the windshield, Ethan glanced down. The woman murmured something. Emery, Jules. Names? He clung to the sound, pressing harder on the gas. Sir, we're ready," Miranda said calmly, meeting Ethan at the front steps. The city had blurred by traffic, sirens, red lights, and now, just beyond the gates of his estate, sunlight spilled across gardens blooming with early spring blossoms. His home, a sprawl of white stone and glass, stood in quiet contrast to the chaos they'd just escaped. Ethan carried the woman Lena, he would learn, into the grand foyer. Miranda guided him toward the guest wing, toward a sunlit room with soft linens and warm light. Dr. Ian Patel, his on-call pediatrician, was already there, gray-haired, efficient, calm. A nurse, Melissa, followed closely behind. Ethan gently laid Lena on the bed, then turned to the stroller. 3 tiny babies, 2 girls and a boy, rested in silence, too still for comfort. They're malnourished, Dr. Patel said, checking vitals. Dehydrated. We need fluids formula immediately. Mom needs electrolytes. Rest. Ethan nodded. Melissa was already prepping IVs, sliding tiny needles into tinier arms with practiced care. The babies stirred at last, soft whimpers rising from their fragile lungs. A tag on the stroller read, Emery, Jules, Sky, Names, Life. Lena moaned softly, eyes fluttering open. Panic surged the moment she saw strangers hovering. My babies, she rasped, trying to sit. They're okay. Ethan said, kneeling beside her. You're safe. I found you in Maple Glen Park. I'm Ethan. The doctors are helping. She looked from him to the babies. Tears spilled over. I couldn't feed them, she whispered. No money. No home. I tried. Her voice cracked, hands gripping the blanket. Ethan felt something twist in his chest. Anger, sadness, a deep ache. You did everything you could, he said softly. You kept them alive. That's everything. Their eyes met hers, green, clouded with exhaustion, yet still fierce. Something passed between them. A flicker of trust. They'll get what they need now, he said gently. You're all staying here until you're strong again. She shook her head, voice still hoarse. I can't afford this. I don't even know you. No cost, he replied firmly. My home, my rules. You focus on healing. He gave her space, stepping aside as she exhaled shakily. Dr. Patel pulled Ethan aside. With care, the babies will recover, a few days at least. Mom's severely undernourished, but stable. They've been through hell, likely homeless. If you're thinking social services don't, Ethan cut in, sharper than he intended. They stay here. Logic screamed at him this was a liability, an unknown risk. But his instincts said something else, something quieter, stronger. By afternoon, the guest suite had transformed. Bottles lined the counter, diapers were stacked. Miranda brought down old baby clothes, from storage, items, from Ethan's late sister's daughter, long packed away, still soft. Lena sat up, sipping broth, eyes heavy but clearer. Ethan lingered by the door, uncertain of his place. In the boardroom, he was decisive. Here, he fumbled. Names? He asked, nodding toward the cribs. Emery. Jules. Sky, Lena said softly. They're 6 months. They're everything. Her fingers brushed a locket at her throat, old, worn, but loved. In that gesture, Ethan saw it. A story of struggle and resilience. They're fighters, he said quietly. Like their mom. Her lips twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. Something in his chest tightened. Later, he stepped out and called his lawyer, making sure no well-meaning caseworker would come knocking. Not yet. Back inside, Melissa patiently showed him how to mix formula. He held little Jules, her tiny fingers curling around his thumb, and felt something shift. Not just responsibility, something else. Hope. Lena watched him. From the bed, something unreadable in her gaze. Maybe suspicion, maybe wonder, maybe both. That night, she finally slept babies, safe in cribs, their breathing soft and steady. Ethan sat alone in his study, night pressing gently against the glass walls. He had searched her name, Lena Monroe, and found nothing. No social media, no record. Just a backpack with a library card, formula coupons, and a worn photograph of her smiling with the triplets when they were all a little fuller. A little happier. Who was she? Why was she alone? He walked back to the suite to check on them one last time. Lena stirred as he adjusted the blanket around her. Thank you, she murmured, barely awake. Her hand brushed his. Warm, present. And for the first time in a very long time, Ethan didn't feel alone either. The touch had lingered longer than either of them expected. Brief, light but electric. Ethan had pulled away, heart racing, not because it wasn't welcome, but because it was. And he wasn't ready, not for this, whatever this was. By morning, Lena was stronger. She sat upright in bed, cradling little Sky in her arms while Emery and Jules napped nearby in matching bassinets. Sunlight poured through the tall windows of the guest suite, wrapping everything in soft gold. It made her hair shimmer, her skin warm. She looked better, still pale, still tired, but the fog in her eyes had lifted. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, breaking the quiet. Her gaze met his, clear and cautious. "You don't know me." Ethan stood in the doorway, dressed down in a soft gray sweater and jeans, his usual suit and armor left behind. "I don't know," he admitted honestly. "I saw you and them, and I couldn't just walk away." He stepped inside, setting down a tray of juice and toast. "Maybe that's enough for now." Lena looked down. A tear slid quietly down her cheek, but she didn't brush it away. Something passed between them. Fragile, unspoken, real. The room was filled with soft sounds, gentle breathing, baby sighs, the hush of early morning comfort. Lena's fingers gripped the locket at her throat, her tether to whatever life she'd lived before. Her babies, sleeping soundly now, had survived a nightmare. So had she. She was 25, a widow, a mother of 3. And yesterday, she had collapsed in a park with nothing but an old backpack and a fading sense of hope. Now she was here, in the guest room of a billionaire's home. And somehow, still unsure if this was rescue or just another dream waiting to fade. Ethan brought over the tray and sat beside her, but not too close. "You scared me yesterday," he said quietly, nodding toward the sleeping babies. "All of you." Lena exhaled, her voice barely above a whisper. "I scared myself too." She glanced at Emery as the baby stirred, a tiny coo escaping her lips. "I thought I'd lost them," she said. Her voice broke. "I thought—" "You didn't," Ethan said firmly. "They're still here. You're still here." He leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees, careful to give her space, but close enough to feel her presence. "They're strong," he added, "like their mom." Lena looked at him, truly looked. Her green eyes were open, cautious but searching. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The air thickened, charged with something that couldn't be named yet. Hope. Maybe. Or something even braver. "You don't know me," she said again, softer this time. And this, she gestured vaguely, around the elegant room. This place, the nurse, the doctor. "It's too much." Ethan smiled faintly. "I saw you in that park, Lena. You and those kids. And I knew I couldn't walk away. Maybe it was instinct. Or maybe I just needed to do something that mattered." He paused, then half laughed, half confessed. "My life's been spreadsheets, meetings, transactions." For too long, Lena tilted her head, studying him. "You're Ethan Cole, right? I've seen your name. Billboards, magazine covers. You're not what I expected." He grinned, caught off guard. "Good," he said. "That guy's boring." She actually smiled, then soft and real, and something inside Ethan stirred. Something dangerous, but alive. The door opened. Miranda swept in, arms full of tiny new clothes rompers, socks, onesies, and pastel colors. "These are for the little ones," she said, her smile warm. "No hand-me-downs. Only brand new beginnings." "These came in this morning," Miranda said with a wink, setting down a stack of soft, colorful baby clothes. All of it, per Mr. Cole's request. Lena's eyes widened. Ethan lingered at the doorway, slightly sheepish. "I may have gotten a bit carried away online last night," he admitted. "Turns out it's alarmingly easy to spend $2,000 on baby hats." "You didn't have to," Lena said, her fingers brushing the fabric of a tiny knit cap. Her voice softened. They've never had anything new. They do now, Ethan replied, stepping back to give her space. Rest. Eat. I'll check in later. He left the room with his heart pounding, her smile still playing like a melody in his mind. Back in his study, Ethan tried to return to his world. Emails, prototypes, deadlines, but every line blurred into images of Lena, her quiet resilience, the way she cradled her children like shields and prayers. And those kids, fragile, bright-eyed, full of need and grace. Something in her had stirred something long buried in him, a longing he hadn't let himself feel since the woman he once loved walked away 10 years ago. By noon, Lena was up again, insisting on feeding the babies herself. Ethan found her in the nursery, Emery nestled in her arms, while Sky and Jules gurgled contentedly in their cribs. The room was awash in sunlight. Fresh daisies bloomed in a vase nearby, a detail Miranda had added. Need a hand? Ethan asked, hesitating by the door. Lena looked up, bottle paused in midair. You know how to feed a baby? Not a clue, he grinned. But I'm a fast learner. She laughed, then really laughed and nodded. Okay, rookie, Jules is yours. She showed him how her hands guiding his. Brief contact, but enough to send a quiet shiver through him. He held the bottle awkwardly at first, but the baby latched quickly, blue eyes locked on his, and just like that, the world slowed. The weight shifted. Something warm and real took its place. They fed the babies in easy silence, the only sounds, tiny gulps, soft baby sighs, and the hum of the ceiling fan. When Sky fussed, Ethan instinctively rocked her crib, mimicking Lena's earlier motion. She quieted. You're not bad at this, Lena said, smoothing Emery's blanket. Beginner's luck, he replied. But when their eyes met again, something lingered too long to be casual. She looked away first, but not before he saw the flicker of pink rise in her cheeks. Over lunch, sandwiches left by Miranda Lena opened up, slowly, carefully. I wasn't always like this, she said, picking at the crust of her bread. My husband, Tom, he died 2 years ago. Car accident. Before the triplets were born. Her voice shook. We had a house, plans, then debt came, then eviction. I tried to keep up. I did, but she stopped, tears brimming. The park. I was skipping meals, saving for formula. Ethan didn't touch his food. He didn't need to. Her words filled the room with more than silence. You're still standing, he said gently. That's more than most. She shook her head, eyes distant, barely. And just as her voice cracked again, Ethan's hand twitched instinctively, wanting to reach for hers. He didn't. Instead, he said softly, You're not alone anymore. Lena looked up, surprise flickering behind her fatigue. Why do you care, Ethan? She asked, honest and tired and searching. Really? He paused, then gestured around him to the walls, the polished floors, the quiet corners of a house built to impress. Because you remind me that life should be more than this, he said, more than just wealth and numbers. And those kids, they deserve better. So do you. She blinked as tears slipped silently down her cheeks, then gave a shaky laugh. Your trouble, she whispered, almost smiling, but her gaze lingered. Something unspoken sparked in the space between them. That afternoon, Ethan walked her through the mansion, the sunlit library, the quiet garden. Lena held Sky in her arms. Ethan pushed the stroller where Emery and Jules napped in peace. It's like a dream, Lena murmured, pausing by the fountain. The water shimmered under the sun. Fairy tales have dragons, Ethan teased. This is just home, for now. Yours too. She turned to look at him, hair haloed by light. For now, she echoed, but her voice held a question, a hope. That night, Ethan set up a nursery down the hall. 2 cribs, monitors, toys, rockers, everything delivered in hours. Everything perfect. Lena protested, but he only smiled. You're spoiling them, Lena teased, smiling as she watched Emery giggle and grab for a soft rattle. She was standing close, so close that her shoulder brushed against Ethan's. Good, he said quietly, meeting her gaze, his voice low. Their eyes locked again, and in that stillness, something shifted, a moment suspended, a breath between 2 people who hadn't expected to feel anything like this again. He stepped back, clearing his throat. But the feeling lingered, like a spark tucked away beneath the surface, waiting. That night, the house was silent under a sky littered with stars. Ethan stood alone in the kitchen, struggling with the espresso machine. The quiet was broken by soft footsteps. Lena. Sky was asleep in her arms, her tiny breath steady against her mother's chest. Can't sleep, she asked. Never do, he said, holding out a mug. Their fingers touched, just for a second. But the jolt it sent through him was undeniable, and her blush told him she felt it too. This feels too good, she whispered, rocking Sky gently, like something that'll fall apart. It won't, Ethan said, stepping closer, his voice steady. I'm not going anywhere. She looked at him then, really looked, and something in her expression hope, maybe asked a quiet question. Promise? She said, only half joking. Promise, he answered, and he meant it. He meant they were a breath away from something deeper, until Sky stirred, letting out a sleepy coo, breaking the spell. They laughed, easing back. But Ethan knew. Lena wasn't just a guest. She was something more. He didn't know what yet, but he knew he wasn't going to let it go. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the nursery windows, warming the soft blue walls and floral decals Miranda had added overnight. Lavender drifted gently from a diffuser. 3 cribs lined the room, each one filled with light and life. Emery, Jules, Sky, happy, safe, giggling. Lena sat cross-legged on the rug, hair tied back, cheeks brighter than days before. She dangled a plush toy in front of Jules, whose hands eagerly reached for it. Ethan leaned in the doorway, coffee in hand, sleeves rolled to his elbows. This wasn't a boardroom, but it was the first room in years that made him feel something real. Morning, team, he said, stepping in. His voice was light, but his chest wasn't. It fluttered, watching them. You're late, Lena said playfully. She nodded toward Emery, who was chewing on a teething ring with serious commitment. These little bosses wait for no one. Ethan laughed, setting his mug aside. All right, boss, what's today's assignment? He knelt beside Sky, gently tickling her toes, earning a squeal, and Lena's laughter a sound that lit the room like sunshine on glass. Feeding time, she said, handing him a bottle. Jules is picky, likes it just warm, not hot. Challenge accepted. Their fingers brushed again. A spark. Her cheeks flushed, and Ethan felt it too electric and undeniable. They worked together with ease. Lena fed Emery, while Ethan focused on Jules, who locked eyes with him as she drank, tiny fingers curling around his thumb. Sky kicked happily nearby in her crib, the room full of soft baby chatter and the kind of peace Ethan didn't realize he'd missed all his life. Patel's last visit had brought good news: weight gain, strong vitals, recovery well on its way. Lena looked stronger too, her voice steadier, her posture firmer. But her locket still hung around her neck, and Ethan knew there were chapters of her story she hadn't shared. He wanted to ask. About Tom, about the crash, about how she ended up in that park. But he didn't. Not yet. Not until her heart felt ready. You're a natural, Lena said softly, watching him soothe Jules. Ethan smiled, but his eyes lingered on her just a moment longer than necessary. And in that space between a glance and a word, something unspoken bloomed again. Not quite love, but something just as dangerous, and just as real. Ethan adjusted the angle of the bottle in Jules's hands, gently tilting it so the milk flowed just right. Lena watched him, surprised. I wouldn't have pegged you for a baby guy. Me neither, Ethan said with a grin. But these three, they make it easy. Jules's blue eyes locked onto his, tiny fingers clutching the bottle. Ethan's heart gave a tug, not just joy, something deeper, like he was remembering a moment from a life he hadn't lived yet. Lena noticed. She always did. Her gaze softened, and for a second the lines between their worlds disappeared. No billionaire, no single mom, just two people tired, hopeful, sharing something real. Then Sky fussed, breaking the moment. Lena moved with ease, lifting her daughter into her arms. Ethan watched her marveled, really. She was 25, widowed at 23, raising 3 babies through eviction, hunger, and heartbreak. How did you do it? He asked quietly. His voice lowered as Jules drifted to sleep in his arms. All of this on your own? Lena rocked Sky slowly, her smile fading but not gone. I didn't really have a choice, she said. Tom and I had everything planned. Names, nursery colors, even college savings. Her voice trembled slightly. When he died, I was pregnant and alone. I kept going. For them, she glanced at the babies. Her locket glinted under the light. Some days I didn't eat, but they had bottles. Then came the eviction. And, well, you saw where that led. Ethan's jaw clenched, not from pity, but something closer to outrage. At a world that let someone like her fall through the cracks. You're amazing, he said honestly. Most people would have given up. Her eyes found his, clear, unflinching. I did break, she whispered. I just never stopped moving. She pressed a kiss to Sky's forehead. You picking us up that day, that's what was incredible. Ethan's throat tightened. I'm no hero, he said softly, laying Jules in her crib. I just couldn't leave you there. Why not? She asked, her voice almost teasing. Most people would have called for help, gone on with their day. She looked around the nursery, the soft music playing, the warmth in the air. Why all this? Ethan paused, his gaze lit by the morning sun. Because when I saw you that day, you looked at me. Even half-conscious, your eyes were still fighting. For them, for you. He gave a small, sheepish shrug. I wanted to fight too. Doesn't sound dumb, Lena whispered. And when their eyes met, the world quieted again. He almost reached for her hand, but then Sky yawned, tiny and soft, reminding them of where they were. They both laughed, and the spell lifted, just a little. That afternoon was filled with diapers, lullabies sung off-key, and Ethan's clumsy burping attempts that left Lena giggling. With every shared glance, every gentle correction of his hold or wipe of a messy chin, something settled between them. Not just trust, but rhythm. Like two dancers learning steps they'd never known but somehow remembered. When Jules curled her fingers around Ethan's, Lena's smile changed. It wasn't polite or guarded anymore. It was warm, real. The kind of smile that said, I see you, not just your name, your money, or your house. You. Later, Ethan took them to the garden. The sun was high, tulips in bloom, butterflies drifting lazily across the walk. Lena pushed the stroller while Emery cooed at the sky. Ethan walked beside her, closer than necessary. Their shoulders touched more than once. Neither moved away. Ever think about teaching again? He asked. She looked up, surprised. He'd seen the teaching certificate folded in her bag. You'd be amazing. Her laugh was soft, nostalgic. First grade. Picture books. That was the plan. With Tom? He asked gently. She nodded. Yeah, we dreamed it all. And now? Ethan asked, stopping by the fountain. Sunlight danced in the water behind him. You could still try, he said, if you wanted. She studied him, eyes full of hesitation and hope. Are you offering to fund my comeback, Mr. Billionaire? Ethan smiled, heart stuttering. If you'll let me, Miss Monroe. She laughed, and this time it reached every part of her. Dinner was pure chaos. Miranda's famous lasagna ended up more on bibs than in mouths. Lena juggled Sky while Ethan tried and failed to keep Emery from finger painting with sauce. They swapped stories, Lena's childhood dog, Buster, Ethan's disastrous camping trip in Utah. They laughed until their sides ached. When Lena's hand brushed his, wiping tomato from Jules's cheek, neither of them moved away. The touch was soft, unspoken, a promise of something not quite defined, but very much real. Later, after the babies slept, they sat together in the library, the mansion quiet, the world outside forgotten. Lena pulled a copy of Charlotte's Web from the shelf. She traced her fingers across the worn cover. I used to read this to the baby bump, she said softly. Every night. If I went back to teaching, Lena said softly, I think I'd want to start with the little ones, the ones who still believe in magic. You will? Ethan said, sitting close, so close their knees nearly touched. I see it, he continued, his voice low. You, a classroom, these three cheering you on. Her eyes shimmered tears she didn't let fall. You make it sound possible, she said. No one's done that? Not since Tom. Ethan's heart skipped. Her words unlocked something, an unopened door inside him. I want to help you get there, he said. Steadier now. For you. For them. Maybe... He paused. The next word slipped out like breath. Maybe for us. Lena blinked. Us? She echoed. Half a smile. Half fear. Her fingers grazed his deliberate this time. Her locket caught the light between them. He nodded, leaning in slightly. Yeah, he whispered. But before he could say anything more, a sharp cry cracked through the baby monitor Emery. Lena stood, the spell broken, but her fingers squeezed his just once. A fleeting promise later. She whispered, her eyes saying more than words ever could. Ethan watched her go, heart thudding. He knew it now. He was falling. Fast and for real. The garden bloomed in full May glory, roses and lavender dancing gently in the breeze. The air smelled like hope. Lena pushed the triple stroller along the gravel path, her golden hair glowing under the sun. The triplets gurgled, captivated by butterflies flitting between flowers. It had been 2 weeks since Ethan had found them in Maple Glen Park. Now his mansion had become a place of peace. For her, for them, for him. Ethan walked beside her, sleeves rolled up, a picnic basket swinging at his side. Not a billionaire today, not a CEO, just a man, smiling as he made faces at Sky, who squealed in response. Lena laughed clear, bright, real. The memory of last night, her hand in his, her whispered later, was a song playing in his chest. He had built his life around control, around caution. But Lena, with all her fire and fragility, was rewriting every rule. Think they're ready for their first picnic? He asked, nodding toward the stroller. They're ready for chaos, she smirked, adjusting Jules' sun hat. Are you ready for mashed peas and outfit changes? I was born for it, Ethan said, winking. Her laughter spilled out, and it struck him again, that ache. Not of pain, but of something deeper, longing, real and raw. They spread a blanket near the fountain. Water sparkled behind them as they settled in. Lena fed Sky a bottle. Ethan mashed bananas for Jules. Their movements were practiced now, a rhythm between them, like a quiet dance. Natural, effortless. When Emery grabbed Ethan's finger and babbled with glee, Lena looked up, and for a moment, she didn't see a billionaire. She saw a man who showed up, who knelt beside her babies, who learned their quirks, who saw her. Not the girl from the park, not the charity case, but the woman she was trying to become again. "You're good with them," she said, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Better than you think." Ethan looked up, banana on his hand, and grinned. High praise, but from the expert. Their eyes met again, warm, steady. That spark flickered again. "They make it easy," he said. "You make it easy." She blushed, looking down, but the words sank deep. Another pebble dropped in still water. Another wall crumbling. She'd tried to resist it, his kindness, his quiet patience, the nursery he built without question, the space he gave her to dream again. But last night, when their hands had found each other, something inside her had shifted, like standing in sunlight after years of hiding in shadow. They ate sandwiches, fresh fruit, and Miranda's lemonade while the babies napped nearby. The garden was a cocoon of stillness. Ethan leaned back, arms behind his head, eyes closed briefly in the sun. Then he asked, "What was teaching like back then?" Lena sipped her lemonade, her locket catching the light. "It was everything," she said softly. "I student-taught first grade. Picture books, glue sticks, kids laughing." She smiled bittersweet. "Tom and I dreamed I'd finish my certification. He'd coach high school ball. A small house, pizza Fridays." Her voice trailed off, but the glow didn't vanish. And Ethan realized something beautiful. Even through grief, she still believed in dreams. And maybe, just maybe, she was beginning to believe in him too. "I always thought I'd have my own classroom," Lena murmured. Then Tom was gone, and the babies came, and she gave a soft shrug, her smile faint but wistful. "Dreams wait, I guess." "They don't have to," Ethan said, sitting up straighter beside her, his voice steady and sincere. "You could start again, certification, classes, whatever it takes." He hesitated, catching the shift in her posture. "This isn't about money," he added quickly. "It's time, support, belief. Whatever you need, I'm here." Lena's gaze searched his tired, yes, but lit by a flicker of something else. "Why?" she asked quietly. "You've done enough. More than enough." Ethan leaned in, the edge of the blanket soft between them. His eyes never left hers. "Because I see you, Lena," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Not just as a mom, not just someone surviving. You're more. You deserve that dream. I want to see you shine." Her breath caught. His words wrapped around her like warmth she hadn't known she'd needed. Not since Tom had anyone looked at her that way, like she was a future, not a past. "Your trouble," she said with a half laugh. But her hand brushed his, this time on purpose. Neither of them moved. The babies stirred, cutting through the moment, and they both laughed as they gathered bottles and burp cloths. But the air still shimmered with what they hadn't said. Later, as they returned inside, Ethan gestured toward the nursery. A laptop sat open on the changing table. An online teaching course pulled up. "Found it last night," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "No pressure. But it's a start." Lena froze. Her fingers brushed the keys like they might disappear. "I can't afford," she started. "It's covered," Ethan said gently, cutting her off. "This isn't charity. It's a door. Just say yes." She hesitated. Pride wrestled with hope. Then she nodded, eyes filling. "Yes," she whispered. She hugged him quick, impulsive. Warmth against his chest that felt like something he could live in. He held her a moment too long. Neither minded. That evening, Ethan insisted on cooking dinner. Pasta. It was a disaster from the start. From water, boiling over, sauce on the walls, but Lena was laughing, standing beside him in the golden kitchen light. She chopped herbs, teasing him about his hopeless knife skills. "You're a mess," she said, ducking a puff of flour he flicked toward her. Learning from the best, he grinned, catching her wrist mid-motion. Their eyes locked. Her pulse fluttered beneath his fingers. He wanted to kiss her. Almost did. But a squeal from Sky broke the spell. They served dinner in chaos. Carrot puree ended up on Bib's cheeks and one of Ethan's shirt cuffs. But it was perfect. Lena told stories of classroom chaos, paper snowstorms, and finger paints. Ethan told the tale of his failed first business venture, electric shoelaces. Their laughter wove something stronger than comfort, something real. When Jules grabbed Ethan's tie, Lena leaned in to untangle it, her breath brushing his cheek. "You're stuck now," she whispered, half joking, but they both knew it was more than that. Later, in the garden, the triplets finally asleep, Lena sat on a bench with her laptop glowing beside her. Enrollment confirmed. Ethan sat next to her, the fountain trickling quietly nearby. "It feels real," she said, voice soft, "like I'm me again." "You never stopped being you," he said. His hand found hers, on purpose, this time. She didn't pull away. Her fingers curled into his. The silence between them thrummed, not empty, full of everything not yet said. "Ethan," she began, her voice uncertain, it's a lot. I'm not sure I'm ready." Her locket glinted in the starlight. Tom's memory still lingered like a shadow. "I know," Ethan said, gently squeezing her hand. "No rush. I'm here, however you want me." Her eyes shimmered. She leaned closer, their shoulders brushing. "I want you here," she whispered. And his heart lit up. Not fireworks, but something slower, deeper, like a vow sealed without words. They stayed like that hand in hand until Miranda's voice called from the doorway, "Bedtime for the babies." Upstairs, Lena rocked Emery while Ethan hummed softly, cradling Sky. Their eyes met over the cribs. "Good team," Lena whispered, smiling. Ethan nodded. Whatever this was, this almost love, this fragile becoming, it was growing. As Lena stepped into her room for the night, she paused in the doorway. "Thank you," she said, voice low. "For seeing me, always," Ethan replied. And her smile stayed with him, a light in the dark. A promise. The morning light bathed the Cole estate in gold, casting soft beams through the tall windows of the library. Outside, roses swayed in the June breeze, bursts of pink and yellow, dancing like sunlight made real. Inside, Lena Monroe sat at the long oak desk, her laptop open to her online teaching course. Notes and lesson plans scattered like petals across the surface. Her blonde hair was pinned in a loose twist, her green eyes locked in quiet focus. She looked alive again. In the corner, Emery, Jules, and Sky giggled over plastic blocks, their 7-month-old voices mixing with the clatter of toys. Their laughter filled the room like wind chimes. Lena's locket still hung around her neck, a soft reminder of Tom. But something inside her had shifted. Her heart felt lighter. Because of Ethan Cole, not just his kindness, but the way he saw her and never once looked away. Ethan lay sprawled on the floor, arms outstretched, as Jules crawled across his chest, a block gripped triumphantly in her tiny hand. He grinned. 3 weeks ago, he'd been a man alone in a mansion. Now he was a jungle gym for 3 gummy-toothed explorers. And strangely, this felt more real than anything he'd built in boardrooms. "Easy, champ," he laughed, adjusting Jules before she toppled. "You're tougher than half my executive team." Jules squealed. Emery answered with a babble. Lena glanced up, smiling softly. "You're losing," she teased, nodding toward Sky's neatly stacked tower. "She's got you beat." Betrayed, Ethan gasped, clutching his chest. "My own team!" Lena's laughter came like sunlight through trees, unexpected, warm, and impossible to ignore. Their eyes met, and in that glance was everything unsaid. A spark, a pull neither of them could explain away anymore. Then movement at the door. Miranda entered quickly, phone in hand, her expression tight. "Mr. Cole," she said, "there's a man at the gate. Says he knows Ms. Monroe. Refuses to leave." The warmth in the room vanished. Lena's pen dropped. Her breath caught. "Did he give a name?" she asked, already standing, Ivy clinging to her side. "No," Miranda said. "Older, rough jacket. Said it was family business." "Security's holding him at the gate." Ethan rose, passing jewels to Miranda, his voice calm but steely. "Stay here with the babies. I'll handle it." "No," Lena said quietly. She held Sky close, her voice trembling but certain. "If it's who I think it is, I need to see him." Their eyes met hers, pleading and fierce. He nodded. He trusted her strength, even if every instinct told him to protect her from whatever waited outside. The front path was blinding in the sun, the white stone of the mansion almost too bright. At the gate, a man stood beyond the iron bars, grizzled, mid-50s, in a faded army jacket and stained jeans. Lena froze. Her knuckles tightened around the strap of her locket. "Ron," she whispered, her voice cracked. "Tom's father." Ethan stepped closer, his hand brushing hers, steady, anchoring. "What does he want?" he asked, voice low. Lena's throat tightened. "Custody," she said bitterly. "After Tom died, he tried to take the babies. Said I wasn't fit. I had no job, no home. But the court saw through him. He didn't stop." Ethan's jaw clenched. Protectiveness flared hot beneath his ribs. He stepped forward, standing between Lena and the man. "You're on private property," he said evenly. "State your business." Ron's eyes didn't even flinch toward Ethan. They stayed on Lena. "Her," he said with a smirk. "And those babies, they're my son's blood. I've got a right. She's mooching off you, Cole, playing victim. But I'll raise them right. You'll see. Court will too." Lena stepped forward. Her body trembled, but her voice didn't. "You'll never touch them," she said. "You hurt Tom. You scared me. You called me names, broke things in front of them. They are mine." Her voice cracked, but she didn't step back. Ron laughed. "Cruel. You think this billionaire's gonna keep you forever? This little fantasy?" Ethan moved beside her again, his presence solid, protective. His words came low, certain. "She's not alone. Not anymore. And no court will ever give you those children, Ron. Not while I draw breath." The man sneered, but the bite had dulled. Security stepped in. "I suggest you leave," Ethan added, voice calm but laced with steel. "Now, before this becomes a police matter." Ron glared at Lena once more, then turned. As he was escorted down the drive, Lena's shoulders sagged. She didn't cry. She simply stood there, breathing in the sun, the space, the safety. Ethan stepped behind her, not touching just there. "Are you okay?" he asked. "No," she whispered, then turned to him. "But I will be." "Get yourself a lawyer, girl," Ron snarled, backing toward the gate as security flanked him. "You'll lose." He stalked off down the drive, but his words clung to the summer air like storm clouds cutting through sunlight. Back inside, Lena sank onto the couch, Sky curled in her lap. Tears slipped quietly down her cheeks. Ethan knelt in front of her, his heart aching with a helplessness he hadn't felt in years. He reached for her hand, thumb brushing her knuckles gently. "He's not going to win," he said, voice steady with conviction. "I'll get lawyers the best in the state. Whatever it takes. You're not alone, Lena." She looked up, eyes glassy and raw. I can't lose them," she whispered. "They're all I have." "Not all," he said, his voice tight. "You have me." Her breath caught. She leaned forward, forehead resting lightly against his, a soft sob escaping. He held her there, sky between them, a shield, a promise. It wasn't just comfort, it was protection, it was devotion, it was something blooming that neither of them dared name. That afternoon, Ethan didn't hesitate. He called his legal team, signed a six-figure retainer with barely a question. Custody shield. Full priority, he said. Whatever she needs, make it unshakable. Lena stayed close, her body still trembling, but her spirit grounding again. They played with the triplets in the nursery as sunlight filtered in through gauzy curtains. Emery stacked blocks. Jules giggled with a rubber duck. Ethan taught Lena a bottle-warming trick he'd learned by trial and error. Their laughter was hesitant, but real. "You're relentless," she teased, watching him try to juggle a bottle, a bib, and Sky's slippery toy. "Only for you," he replied, half smiling. But his eyes didn't joke. She saw it, and her cheeks colored. The shift was happening, slow, certain. Love still unnamed was drawing its roots. Dinner that evening was quiet. Miranda's carrot soup steamed in white bowls. The babies slept upstairs. Lena spoke softly. "Ron, he was awful to Tom," she said, stirring her spoon. "Mean, drunk. Tom cut him off years ago. But when he died, Ron came for us, said I'd fail, said I was nothing." Her voice wavered. "I almost did. That day in the park." Ethan reached across the table, covering her hand with his. "You didn't fail," he said, fiercely. "You fought. And now, you're not fighting alone." Later, in the warm glow of the library, they sat side by side, her laptop open. He quizzed her gently on her teaching plans, helping her focus through the weight of worry. Their knees brushed, their laughter returned, softer now, but easier. When she yawned, he scooped up Jules from the floor and carried her toward the nursery, Lena walking beside him in sync. "Stay," she said, her voice shy but steady, as she tucked Emery into bed. "Just talk. I don't want to be alone tonight," he nodded, heart racing. They sat in the soft light of the nursery, whispers mingling with the hum of lullabies. She told him her favorite childhood book. He told her about his worst cooking experiment, mac and cheese with blueberries never again. They spoke of dreams, of family. "I always wanted that," Ethan admitted, watching Sky sleep peacefully. "A real one. Kids. Laughter. I thought I'd lost that chance." Lena's hand found his. Her fingers laced into his. "It's not lost," she said, eyes meeting his. "You're here, Ethan. That's everything." He leaned closer, drawn in by her strength, her softness. Their lips brushed, tentative, searching. The kiss was warm and quiet and full of promise. Her locket, cool against his chest, reminded them both that healing and love could exist side by side. She pulled away, blushing but smiled. "Good night," she whispered, standing. Her fingers lingered on his before she slipped away. Ethan lay awake hours later, the moonlight spilling across his room. Lena's kiss still burned on his lips, but it was her trust that lit something deeper in him. Her fight, her faith. He would protect her, protect the children, and if she let him, he would become part of it all. The kitchen buzzed with summer light the next morning. Warm air poured through open windows, the scent of strawberries and pancakes filling the air. Lena stood barefoot at the stove, flipping pancakes, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked freer than he'd ever seen her. Her laughter was real again. Emery, Jules, and Sky giggled from their high chairs, cheeks sticky with cereal, their eyes bright with mischief. And across from them, Ethan Cole, billionaire, inventor, CEO, wore a flower-streaked apron and fed Sky with practiced patience. The world beyond might have demanded his power, but here in this sun-drenched kitchen, he was just a man, and he was exactly where he wanted to be. Ethan laughed as Jules swiped at his nose with a yogurt-covered hand, his eyes crinkling with joy. Just a month ago, He'd found Lena and her 3 babies collapsed in Maple Glen Park. Now their lives were quietly woven together, her teaching course, his care, the lingering gravity of Ron's custody threat, and last night's kiss? It had sealed the truth he hadn't yet said aloud. He was in love with her. Chef Miranda's outdone herself, Ethan said, dodging another spoonful from Sky's enthusiastic grip. Pancakes smell like victory. Lena laughed, stacking golden rounds onto a plate. Better than your last toast incident, she teased. Burnt and still somehow raw. Their banter came easy now, though Lena's heart skipped every time his eyes lingered on her a little too long. Warm, steady, promise in every glance. Tush! Ethan grinned, reaching to help. His hand brushed hers, a spark, unmistakable and intentional. She blushed. He smiled wider. The kiss hadn't been an accident. It had been a beginning. They ate together at the sunlit table. Emery smeared jam across her cheeks. Jules tossed a blueberry across the table, which Ethan caught with a dramatic swoop. Lena watched him watch them, her heart full. He wasn't just helping anymore. He was part of this, of them. But the moment faltered when Miranda returned with the mail. A stack of envelopes clutched in her hand. At the top, an official-looking packet. Lena's smile faded. "Is it from Ron?" she asked, voice tight, already wiping her hands. Ethan opened it quickly, eyes scanning. His jaw softened. "My team got the motion blocked," he said. Judge denied him. "No evidence, no chance. You're safe, Lena." Relief swept over her, but it didn't stay long. She clutched her locket, the weight of old fears still clinging. "He won't stop," she whispered, cradling Sky. "Not until he finds a way to hurt us." Ethan stepped closer, lifting Jules gently to his shoulder. "He won't," he said, voice fierce. "I won't let him. We're here now, together." His eyes found hers, a vow without fanfare, and Lena nodded, leaning into his steadiness, their fingers tangling under the table. That afternoon, they strolled through the garden, tulips blooming in bursts of color around them. Ethan pushed the stroller. Lena carried Emery, her sun hat crooked, her smile wide. "You're teaching tomorrow?" he asked, pride flickering in his voice. "First Zoom class," she said with a soft breath. Nervous, but excited. "It feels like me again." "You'll crush it," he said, stopping near a rose bush. "I'd bet everything on you." She laughed gently, her gaze lingering, careful. "I might hold you to that." He reached out, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Their faces neared breaths mingling, but before their lips could meet, Sky let out a sharp cry from the stroller. They both chuckled. The moment folded away for later. Back inside, disaster arrived with a cough. Lena was changing Jules when the sound broke through a wet, rattling cough from Sky. His cheeks flushed, his eyes watery. Lena's heart dropped. "Fever?" she asked, panic creeping into her voice. Ethan pressed the back of his hand to Sky's forehead. "He's warm," he said, his smile gone. "Really warm." Memories of the park surged back for Lena. Hunger, cold, helplessness. Ethan called Dr. Chen immediately, his voice calm, but his eyes betrayed the storm. Within the hour, the nursery transformed into a quiet triage center. The sun streamed through starry curtains as Dr. Chen checked each of the triplets, Sky lying quiet in Lena's arms. "Bronchitis," she said at last, "mild, but his weight's still catching up. Antibiotics, rest, close watch." Lena's shoulders sagged. Her tears fell, quiet and sharp. "I should have seen it," she whispered. "I'm failing them." "No," Ethan said, kneeling beside her. His hand found hers. "You're not. He's sick, not lost. And we'll get through this." And they did. They took turns. Lena gave Sky his medicine. Ethan rocked him softly, whispering stories about baby birds and flying machines. The nursery filled with light, toys scattered, the fever faded by evening. Sky's cough softened. His eyes brightened. But Lena looked exhausted. Ethan sent for a tray of soup, then sat her on the couch. Sky bounced nearby in her seat. Emery chewed on a block. He placed the bowl in Lena's lap, his voice gentle. "Eat," he said. "You can't pour from an empty cup." She smiled, tired but grateful. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like she was failing. She felt held. "Bossy," Lena muttered weakly, stirring the broth Ethan had handed her. But she took a bite anyway. His presence beside her, steady and quiet, was a balm against the whirlwind. Once Sky had finally drifted into sleep, Ethan guided her gently to the library. The lamps glowed softly. The windows were open to a sky dusted with stars. They sank into the couch, their knees touching. "Talk to me," he said, his voice low. "What's really going on in that head of yours?" Lena hesitated. Her green eyes shimmered, filled with weight she hadn't dared share. "I keep thinking Ron's right," she whispered, "that I'm not enough. Sky got sick, and all I could think was, I'm going to lose everything. The babies. You." Ethan reached for her hands, wrapping them in his warmth. "You're more than enough," he said firmly. "You're their whole world, Lena, and you're mine, too." The words escaped before he could stop them. Raw. Real. Her breath caught. "Yours?" she whispered, half smile, half fear. Her locket trembled slightly at her chest, but her gaze didn't waver. "Yeah," he said, leaning closer, his heart pounding. "I love you, Lena. I love the kids. I love this life we're building. I'm in, all in." Tears spilled down her cheeks, but she laughed, a sound of release and joy. And then she kissed him deep and sure, her fingers in his hair, his arms pulling her close. The library around them disappeared. There was only this, only them, and love finally spoken, finally burning. When they pulled apart, foreheads pressed, breath uneven, she whispered, "I love you too. But I'm terrified, Ethan. This, us, it's big." "I know," he said softly, brushing a kiss against her temple. "We'll go slow, but I'm not going anywhere. You're my family." She nodded, her locket forgotten, her smile radiant. They returned to the nursery together. Sky slept peacefully. Sky and Emery nestled in their cribs. They sat on the floor, shoulder to shoulder, hands laced, just watching, their world breathing quietly around them. That night, Ethan didn't need a plan or strategy. Just this, her, them. He whispered into the stillness, his lips brushing Lena's hair. "We've got this." 1 week later, Maple Glen Park. The August sun bathed the grass in gold, scattering shadows beneath the trees. Children chased kites, dogs tugged on leashes, laughter bubbled across the breeze like music. Lena Monroe stood near a checkered picnic blanket, her blonde hair loose in the wind. Sky giggled in her stroller, now 8 months old. Emery clapped her hands nearby. Sky, stronger now, babbled at a butterfly. This was the same park where their story had begun, where she had fallen, and where someone Ethan had picked her up and never let go. Her locket still rested at her chest, but Tom's memory no longer haunted. It warmed. Love had come again. Unexpected, undeniable. And this time, it had stayed. Ethan knelt beside the blanket, arranging sandwiches and fruit, his white sleeves rolled up. The breeze lifted his hair. To the world, he was still Ethan Cole, billionaire of coal tech. But here, he was hers, and he was theirs. That kiss in the library, the one that followed, "I love you," had changed everything. Not just a feeling, a direction. They weren't building something temporary, and they were becoming something permanent. "Think we packed enough food?" Ethan asked, grinning, as Sky stole a grape from the bowl. "Or are these three planning a feast?" Lena laughed, settling beside him. They're plotting a full banquet, she said. You're outnumbered, Cole. Always, he replied, brushing her hand with his. The spark from that first day in the kitchen had never left. It had simply grown brighter. The picnic unfolded in bursts of laughter and movement. Ethan tossed berries for Sky to catch. Lena read to Sky. Emery smeared jam on Ethan's cheek. People passed, some recognizing Ethan from business headlines. But he never noticed them. His world had narrowed beautifully. To this blanket, to Lena's smile, to the little hands that reached for him with absolute trust. He'd spent over $20,000 on medical care for Sky. Another $15,000 locking down full custody protections. But it wasn't the money that tied them. It was mornings like this. It was moments. It was love built one gentle choice at a time, and in the soft clatter of juice boxes, the giggles of the triplets, and the wind tugging at the corners of their blanket. Lena leaned into Ethan's shoulder and whispered, "This is everything. Love isn't always grand gestures. Sometimes it's sticky fingers and stroller wheels on uneven grass. Sometimes it's messy and loud and more beautiful because of it." Lena leaned against Ethan on their picnic blanket, the golden sun warming their shoulders. "This is where it started," she said softly, eyes drifting across Maple Glen Park. A quiet bench sat in the distance, now just a memory. "I thought I'd lost everything here." Ethan took her hand, his fingers laced through hers like they'd always belonged there. His thumb traced the soft curve of her knuckles. "You didn't lose," he said, his voice a balm. "You found me. We found each other." Her heart swelled. He hadn't saved her. He'd seen her, the grief, the grit, the fierce love she carried for Emery, Sky, and Sky, and he'd offered something she thought she'd lost forever, a home. Not just a place, a person. Then Ethan shifted slightly, his expression changing, something tender, steady. "I didn't plan this," he murmured, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. "But it feels right." Her breath caught. He opened it slowly, a simple diamond ring. No flash, just truth. You, the kids, this life. "It's everything to me. I don't want to be your savior or your landlord. I want to be your partner, for good." Lena's eyes filled, her locket forgotten against her chest. "Ethan," she whispered. "Marry me," he said, voice thick with feeling. "Not because you need me, but because we choose each other. Me, you." The whole chaotic crew, she laughed a sound caught between joy and disbelief, then nodded, cupping his face in her hands. "Yes," she said, clear and full. "Yes, I choose you." Their kiss was deep, sure tasting of strawberry jam, and promises made in sunshine. The ring slipped on perfectly, forgotten for now, because love, real love, was enough. Sky stirred in his stroller with a sleepy sigh, and they pulled apart, laughing. "You're stuck with us now," Lena teased. "Good," Ethan said, brushing a kiss to her forehead, and lifting Sky with a grin. The park spun on kites flying, children shouting, but on that blanket, time stood still. Their little world was complete. That evening, the mansion bloomed with joy. Miranda cried when she heard the news and immediately promised cake. The triplets babbled louder, Ivy tugging on Ethan's tie, Lena gently prying her loose. Their hands brushed, still sparking like that very first touch. Dinner was a blur of pasta and plans, a small wedding, Lena's teaching, a life where money supported love, not defined it. Later, in the nursery, under the soft glow of starry decals, they tucked the babies in. Lena hummed a lullaby. Ethan rocked Sky gently in his arms. "Think they'll like me as their dad?" he asked, half joking, voice hushed. "They already do," Lena whispered. "You're theirs, Ethan, like I'm yours." He kissed her forehead. "No walls left," he said, and meant it. They married in the garden, roses blooming, sky a soft blue. Emery, Sky, and Sky wore tiny outfits and stole every heart. Lena's dress was simple, Ethan's suit relaxed, their vows honest. I choose you. Every day. Friends cheered. Miranda sobbed. And the guests, teachers, nurses, park regulars came not for headlines, but for heart. Lena taught part-time now. Ethan cheered at her first class. Sky was strong. Ron had faded into nothing. They stayed in the mansion, but dreamed bigger. Together, they opened a small school, Haven Hearts, a place for children like Lena's once had been. Not a donation, a promise. To each other, to kindness, to a future where no one fell alone. Their story didn't go viral. It didn't need to. It moved from heart to heart, shared through quiet conversations, through hope rekindled. On their first anniversary, they returned to Maple Glen Park, picnic in hand. Emery toddled. Sky chased bubbles. Sky clapped with delight. Sunlight spilled around them like a blessing. Ethan held Lena close. Their rings glinted in the light. Worth every second, he whispered. She kissed him gently. Babies laughed. The wind danced in the trees. And Lena said, with all the love in her soul forever, thank you for being here. From the very first moment to the final word, your presence has meant the world to us. Every view, every comment is not just support, it's a reminder that stories still matter, that kindness, healing, and love can reach across screens and touch hearts. We hope this story brought you a little warmth, a little hope, and maybe even a tear or smile. From our hearts to yours, thank you for listening, for feeling, and for believing. Until next time, stay kind, stay inspired, and never stop believing in second chances.